The Krillian dawn drifted in the void, its hull scorched and bleeding atmosphere. The last of its energy reserves powered a single repeating broadcast, an SOS, hurled into the dark with no expectation of answer. The Vorath Dominion had shattered their fleets, glassed their colonies, and now their homeworld was next. The Krillians were scholars, not warriors. They had no weapons left. Only a plea. On the frozen outskirts of Sol, the signal reached human ears. Pluto's Deep Space Monitoring Array, a relic from Earth's early expansion, crackled to life as the alien transmission bled through static. Tech Sergeant Riya Patel was the first to hear it, a rhythmic pulse, too precise to be cosmic noise. She called over Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's xenolinguist, who nearly dropped her coffee. It's structured. Language. Elena's fingers flew across the console, peeling back layers of interference. The translation matrix spat out broken phrases. Asterisk, under attack. Vorath, request immediate aid, civilization at brink. Asterisk. The United Earth Council convened within hours. Debates erupted before the hologram of the decoded message even finished cycling. Humanity had barely clawed its way to interstellar travel. What could they do against an empire that devoured worlds? We can't even defend our own colonies from raiders, growled Defense Minister Hale. This isn't our war. Elena slammed her palms on the table. They're dying. The Vorath don't take prisoners, they harvest. She pulled up the Krillian data streams, cities burning, ships torn apart like paper. They asked for help. Not because we're strong, because no one else did. Silence. Then Admiral James Carter stood. His voice was quiet, iron beneath it. Earth's fleet is a joke. But we've got 3 destroyers retrofitted with Martian railguns, 2 carriers with experimental jump drives, and a hell of a lot of people who remember what it's like to be prey. He grinned, sharp as a knife. Let's remind the galaxy why that's a mistake. They moved in secret. Volunteers crammed into ships meant for half their number. Engineers jury-rigged EMP charges from scrap. No grand speeches, just coordinates, a jump sequence, and the unspoken truth. Most wouldn't come back. When the Krillian Dawn S sensors pinged an incoming warp signature, its captain assumed the Vorath had come to finish them. Then the ships emerged, blocky, crude, their hulls welded together by desperation and defiance. The Krillians stared at the unfamiliar sigils, a blue planet circled by olive branches. Elena's voice crackled over their comms. Asterisk, this is the Terran Relief Force. Hang on, we're not great at taking hints, but we do answer when someone calls for help. Asterisk. The Vorath would learn that soon enough. The Krillians had expected rescuers, if they came at all, to be like the Vorath, cold, calculating, armored in the certainty of their own superiority. Instead, humans poured from their ships like a flood, shouting orders in a dozen languages, welding hull breaches shut with slapdash efficiency, and hauling crates of supplies marked with hasty stencils. Elder Tvek watched, his frills twitching in disbelief, as a human in a grease-stained jumpsuit shoved a ration bar into his hands. Eat. You look like hell. Tvek blinked. The Vorath had never spoken to them except to demand surrender. Admiral Carter didn't waste time on formalities. He unrolled a star chart across the Dawn S battered command table. Vorath blockades here, here, and here. Their mothership's feeding data to the swarm, cut the head off, the body flails. You cannot fight them directly, Tvek said. They adapt. Any weapon used against them fails within hours. A human engineer, Diaz, her name tape read, snorted. Yeah, we heard. So we're not gonna use weapons. Not the way you think. She tapped the chart. Vorath predict, right? They see a missile, they adjust shields. See a plasma burst, they tweak frequencies. So we hit him with stuff that doesn't make sense. The plan unfolded like madness. Radio static blasted on every frequency, drowning Vorath comms in old Earth music and screaming propaganda. Dumb-fired railgun slugs, unguided and unoptimized, punched through ships that had recalibrated for energy weapons. A boarding party, armed with nothing but shaped charges and sledgehammers, crippled a destroyer by smashing its reactor regulators. Because who did that? Tvek listened, his claws tightening on the table. This is stupid. Diaz grinned. Yeah. But stupid works when the other guy's too smart to expect it. The Vorath's first wave hit like a storm. Human ships didn't hold formation. They scattered, weaving through fire with no pattern, no logic. A cruiser's AI flagged a drifting cargo pod as low threat, until it exploded into a cloud of shrapnel and molten metal, shredding its engines. Vorath targeting systems glitched, overloaded by conflicting data. They'd spent centuries perfecting responses to elegance. Humanity had brought chaos. On the Dawn S bridge, Hfy watched a Vorath battleship list drunkenly, its hull pocked by kinetic impacts. "They're retreating." "Not retreating," Carter corrected. Recalculating star. He turned, eyes hard. "They'll be back. And next time, they'll bring something worse." Diaz cracked her knuckles. "Good. Let 'em." The Vorath didn't just return. They came screaming out of warp with the kind of fury only a humiliated predator could muster. This time, their ships didn't bother with formation. They came in a swarm, blackening the stars, their hulls bristling with new countermeasures against human tricks. Adaptive armor shimmered across their prows, ready to deflect railgun rounds. Their comms were locked behind layers of encryption, immune to jamming. They had learned. So had the humans. Admiral Carter's fleet didn't even try to meet them head-on. Instead, they broke apart like shrapnel, each ship peeling off on a trajectory that made no tactical sense. The Vorath hesitated, just for a second, and that was all the opening the Beijing needed. The old cruiser, its engines held together by prayer and welding torches, swung broadside and unleashed a full salvo of unguided torpedoes. Not at the ships. At the nearby gas giant. The detonations barely scratched the Vorath shields. But the explosions weren't the point. The torpedoes had been packed with atmospheric destabilizers, a leftover from Earth's old terraforming experiments. The gas giant's upper layers ignited, a storm of fire and plasma ripping across the battlefield. Vorath sensors screamed as radiation washed over them, blinding them. "Now!" Carter barked. Every human ship still operational flipped end over end and burned hard for the planet's magnetosphere. The Vorath followed, their systems still scrambling to filter out the interference, just as the Krillian Dawn's last functional weapon, a gravity slingshot never meant for combat, hurled a chunk of planetary ring debris into their path. The impact wasn't clean. It wasn't precise. It was a half-melted asteroid the size of a city block smashing through 3 Vorath cruisers at relativistic speed. Hfy's claws dug into his console. You planned this?" Diaz, bleeding from a gash above her eye, laughed. "Nah. We improvised." The Vorath mothership, looming at the edge of the battle, finally moved. It was monstrous, a slab of black metal studded with weapon ports, its very presence making space seem to warp. It didn't fire. It didn't need to. Every human ship within 1,000 kilometers shuddered as its systems flickered. The Vorath weren't just jamming them. They were hacking them, brute-forcing their way into navigation, weapons, life support. Carter's screen filled with error messages. "They're in the network." Then the Dawn's comms crackled. A voice, translated but dripping with scorn. "You fight well. 4 vermin. But all things end. The Admiral exhaled. Switched to a closed channel. Shanghai *. You still got that payload?" A pause. Then, "Locked and loaded, sir. Just say the word." Carter looked at Hfy. "Your people got any songs about fire?" The Vorath mothership powered up its main cannon, a weapon designed to crack planets. Human systems were failing, one by one. The Shanghai, its engines dead, drifted silently into position. And then it detonated its core. Not a self-destruct. A trigger. The ship had been packed with every gram of antimatter Earth could spare, wrapped in a magnetic bottle just stable enough to last until now. The explosion didn't just rip through the mothership, it folded space around it, a temporary singularity yanking the Vorath flagship into its own gravity well. For the first time in recorded history, the Vorath screamed. Silence. Then static. Then, from the surviving human ships, cheering. Diaz wiped blood from her face. "Told you. Improvise." Hfy stared at the wreckage. You won." Carter shook his head. "Nah. We just bought time." He turned, jaw set. "Now we take the fight to them." The Vorath homeworld wasn't a planet. It was a machine, A Dyson swarm of black metal plates orbiting a dying star, each segment pulsing with the same terrible intelligence that had devoured 1,000 civilizations. The last transmission from the captured Vorath drone played on loop through the human fleet. Asterisk, you do not understand what you wake. Asterisk. Diaz cracked her knuckles. Sounds like someone's scared. They'd come with everything that could still fly. Krillian refugee ships, jury-rigged with human weapons. Earth's last operational carriers, their hulls patched with scrap metal. Even the Dawn, its engines held together by hope and spite. Admiral Carter's strategy was simple. Hit them where they'd never expect an attack. Their heart. The Vorath didn't bother with warnings. Their defense platforms opened fire the moment the fleet dropped out of warp, energy beams slicing through the lead destroyer before it could raise shields. Carter watched the Jakarta explode on the viewscreen, his face stone. All ships, pattern Delta. Go. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a riot. Human ships weaved through the kill zone in seemingly random patterns, dumping chaff, EMP bursts, and old nuclear mines set to detonate at irregular intervals. The Vorath systems couldn't predict insanity. A boarding party led by Diaz crashed a crippled frigate directly into a control node, then blew the airlocks to space the entire defense grid's command crew. Meanwhile, Krillian engineers, taught by humans, flooded the Vorath networks with recursive viruses based on Earth's oldest malware. Tvek watched in awe as an entire battle plate went dark. You're corrupting their hive mind? Elena grinned, fingers flying across her console. Nope. Just reminding them what happens when you leave your back door open. The Vorath reacted with something no one had ever seen before: panic. Their perfect coordination fractured. Ships collided. Weapons misfired. And then, silence. The central node of the Dyson swarm powered up, its surface rippling like liquid metal. A voice boomed across all frequencies, no longer dismissive, but furious. Asterisk, you will be erased. Your species will be... Asterisk. Carter cut the transmission. Yeah. Shanghai, fire the package. The Shanghai, what was left of it, had one final purpose. Its skeleton crew piloted the wreck straight into the swarm's core, detonating every remaining warhead in its belly. The explosion wouldn't have scratched the surface an hour ago. But now, with their networks in chaos, the Vorath had no shields left to raise. The chain reaction started small. A single plate shattered. Then another. Then 100, 1,000, the swarm eating itself in a wave of catastrophic system failure. The dying star pulsed once, a final violent flare, and then went dark forever. Silence. Then Diaz hooped so loud it clipped the comms. Hell yes. Tvek's hands shook as he accessed the long-range scanners. No Vorath signals. No reinforcements. Just gone. You did it. You actually... We did it, Carter corrected. He slumped into his chair, suddenly looking every year of his age. All of us. The surviving Krillians didn't cheer. They sang, a deep, resonant harmony that made the human crews pause. Elena wiped her eyes. Damn. That's something. Diaz clapped Tvek on the back. So, what now? The elder looked at the stars, really looked, for the first time without fear. Now, he said quietly, we rebuild. And next time someone sends an SOS. Carter finished for him. We answer. Together. The transmission went out on every frequency, in every language they knew. Not a distress call. A promise. Asterisk, this is the Terran-Krillian Alliance. You are not alone. Asterisk. Somewhere, in the dark, a new signal answered. The signal came from the edge of the Andromeda system, weak, distorted, but unmistakable. Another SOS. Diaz nearly choked on her coffee when the alert blared across the bridge. You gotta be kidding me. We just sat down. The transmission was different this time. Older. The encryption patterns matched pre-Vorath galactic standard, the kind used before the hive mind's rise. Elena's translation software spat out fragments, sanctuary compromised, final outpost falling, if any free beings remain. Tvek's frills went rigid. That's a Lorati beacon. Their civilization was extinct before mine was spacefaring. Carter studied the star charts. Then how's it still broadcasting? The answer came from an unexpected source, the Vorath prisoner. It hadn't spoken since its capture, but now it thrashed against its restraints, vocalizing something that made the translation matrix glitch. Elena finally got a clean read. Asterisk, do not wake the dead. Asterisk. The Dawnus rebuilt engines flared as the fleet changed course. They'd barely finished repairs, but there was no question. If something had the Vorath scared, Andromeda's fringe held a graveyard. The source of the signal wasn't a planet. It was an artifact, a perfect sphere of black alloy, floating in the ruins of a dead fleet. Scans showed it was hollow, powered, and covered in what looked like handprints. Diaz suited up before anyone could stop her. I'll take point. The interior wasn't what they expected. No corridors. No controls. Just a single vast chamber, its walls lined with thousands of crystalline pods. And in the center, a pedestal holding one final message. Elena activated it. A hologram flickered to life, a Vorath, its 4 eyes dim with exhaustion. Asterisk, if you are hearing this, we have failed. The Vorath were not the first. They will not be the last. This vault contains the last of our kind, sleeping until the galaxy is safe. But the enemy is still out there. The ones who made the Vorath. Who made us. They are coming. And they do not send warnings. Asterisk. The transmission ended. The pod nearest to Diaz hissed open. Inside was a child. Small. Fragile. Breathing. Tvek stumbled back. They're alive. The Vorath prisoner screamed. Not in rage. In terror. Carter's calm crackled. The Dawn S sensors were going wild. Something was approaching. Fast. Not Vorath. Something older. Diaz didn't hesitate. She scooped the Vorath child into her arms. Weapons hot. We're leaving. The artifact began to dissolve behind them, its outer shell crumbling to dust as the pods, thousands of pods, activated at once. Elena watched the sensors, her voice barely a whisper. They weren't hiding from the Vorath. They were hiding from what made them. The first new star appeared on the edge of the scanner. Then another. And another. Not stars. Eyes. Carter grabbed the comm. Asterisk all ships. Emergency jump. Now. Asterisk. The last thing the sensors registered before the warp engines engaged was the size of the thing emerging from dark space. It was bigger than planets. And it was hungry. Diaz tightened her grip on the child. Well, shit. The fleet vanished into the void. Behind them, the artifact, and the nightmare it held back, was gone. But the signal kept transmitting. Somewhere, another answered. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The jump scrambled their systems worse than a Vorath EMP. When the fleet tumbled back into real space, half the ships were dead in the void, their crews frantically rebooting fried circuits. The Dawnus main screen flickered to life just in time to show the last sensor logs from their escape, the thing in the dark, unfurling across the black like a god waking from sleep. Elena's hands shook as she pulled up the data. That wasn't a ship. That was a structure. A living one. The Vorath child in Diaz's arm stirred, its 4 eyes blinking open for the first time in millennia. It took one look at the readings and began keening, a sound that made every Krillian on the bridge clutch their heads in pain. Tvek barely managed to choke out a translation. It says, asterisk, the architects have returned. Asterisk. Carter's blood ran cold. The Vorath had been bad enough. Now they were dealing with whatever created them. The Dawn S comms crackled to life. A dozen signals bombarded them at once, not just the Vorath SOS, but others. Hundreds. Thousands. All different species, all different eras, all broadcasting the same frantic warning. Elena's translation software crashed trying to process them all. Holy shit! We just tripped a galactic alarm system. Diaz set the child down gently. Okay. Ancient civilization-eating monsters are back. What's the play? The answer came from an unexpected source. The Vorath prisoner, still restrained in the brig, had gone eerily calm. When Tvek approached, it spoke a single word. Asterisk, run. Asterisk. Carter wasn't having it. We ran from the Vorath too. Didn't help. He turned to the fleet. Reboot systems. Arm every weapon we've got. And someone find me a Laura T history file. If we're fighting their boogeyman, I want to know what they tried. The child made a sound like breaking glass. Tvek translated haltingly. It says, the architects don't fight. They rewrite. They took the Lorathi's greatest strength, their unity, and turned it into the Vorath hive mind. Made their own weapons against them. A terrible understanding settled over the bridge. The Vorath hadn't just been enemies. They'd been a warning. Elena pulled up the fleet's damage reports. We can't outgun something that big. We can't even comprehend it. So what do we? The child touched her hand. Its skin was cold. Then it reached for the console and input a sequence, Laura T glyphs, older than the artifact they'd found. The Dawn S system stuttered. A new star chart appeared. Not a map. A path. Diaz whistled. Well, that's not ominous at all. The course led to the galactic core. To a place the Laura T had called Asterisk, the first tomb. Asterisk. Carter exhaled. Only one way to find out. The fleet jumped. They emerged in hell. The core wasn't stars anymore. It was a graveyard. Shattered planets, broken megastructures, the corpses of civilizations stacked like kindling. And at the center, a door. It was larger than worlds, its surface etched with the same handprints as the artifact. The child let out a sound that might have been a sob. Tvek's translation was barely audible. It says, Asterisk, we locked them away. Asterisk. The Dawn S sensors screamed. The thing from Andromeda had followed them. And it wasn't alone. Diaz grabbed the child and ran for the hangar. New plan. Someone figure out how to open that damn door. The architects were coming. And humanity was fresh out of miracles.